In this lesson, I'll be discussing object constraints. Object constraints are ways of being able to draw an object and specify distances, angles, and position. I'm going to start off by drawing a line. So far, every time I've been drawing lines, I've just been clicking to place the position. Another way of being able to draw lines is by typing in the coordinate position. I could say that I want the start of the line to be at the origin. Right here at the center is 0, 0, 0, x, y, and z. For starting from the 0 point, you don't have to type in all three coordinates. You could just type in the number 0 and it will assume that our coordinates are 0. So I'll press enter and we can see that the start point is at the 0 position. Now let's say I want the end of the line to be at 10 x and 10 in y. In order to do that, I type in 10, comma, 10 and press enter. If I needed to also be in a position in x, y, and z, I would put in the third coordinate. So I'll do this again from the perspective view. Start from 0, 10, comma, 10, comma, 10. Enter. Now you can see we're 10 over in the x, 10 up in the y, and 10 up in the z. We can also constrain an object by its angle and by its length. I'm going to start off drawing this line from 0, and this time I want this object to be 10 millimeters long. So I can type in 10 and press enter, and now I'll constrain the length of the object to 10 millimeters. If I want to constrain this to a particular angle, I can type in the angle by entering the less than sign to specify that this next number is an angle. Then I'll type in the number of the angle, which is 45. Press enter, and now you can see as I move the mouse around, I'm constrained at 45-degree angles. When I find the position I want, I can click. Another means that's used quite often to constrain objects is to use the ortho command. You can see this down at the bottom. Anytime you turn on the ortho command and you draw a curve, it will lock in 90-degree angles. So this is an automatic angle constraint where the default angle in the options is set to 90 degrees. You can also temporarily enable ortho by holding the shift key. You can see while I'm holding down shift, I only draw at 90-degree angles, and when I let go of shift, I am free to draw at any angle that I like. We can also constrain our drawing to the grid itself. This can be done by turning on the grid snap at the bottom of the screen. We can also control the grid in order to have more areas to snap to or modify the grid snap settings. If we go to Tools and Options, we can see that the grid options are seen here. We have the grid extents, which is the total size of the grid, how often there is a major, which is the heavier lines, and how often there is a minor, which is the lighter lines. So you can see we have 10 minor lines, and on every 10th line we have a heavier major line. And now we have our snap spacing. Our snap spacing is set to match up with the minor lines, which is every 1 millimeter. You can change this number if you would like. So now you can see when I begin drawing lines, I move the mouse around, you can see that it kind of jumps around and finds the grid itself. So if I wanted to draw a curve that was a particular length, I could click somewhere and then count the grid spacing that I'm moving over. So now I know that this grid spacing is 1 millimeter. So if I come over 5 spaces, I have a 5 millimeter line. Another type of constraint is to use the tab constraint. This constraint constrains the direction that the line is going in. I'll show you an example. Let's say we have a line and we want to draw another line. An instance where the tab constraint might be used, I'm going to start our line, and I know I want my line to be perpendicular, so I'm going to hold shift for ortho, but I also want to stop this line at the same position that this line ends. So I have my end snap turned on, and you can see even though I hold shift, When I come over to try and snap to the end of this line, it does snap to the end of the line, but no longer constrains it to 90 degrees. So if I want to achieve both of these things, if I hold down the Shift key and I tap Tab while holding the Shift key, now I can let go of the Shift key. And I've constrained my line in this ortho direction. Now I'm going to come over and find the end snap and click. You can see that now I've snapped to the end of this line so that this line ends at the same level in the y-axis direction that this line does. But I've also used the direction constraint with the Tab key so I know that my line is 90 degrees. You can also achieve a similar result by using the Smart Track. Smart Tracking can be turned on by clicking this button down at the bottom. Smart Tracking is used by hovering the mouse over a certain position until the Smart Tracking line appears, and then you can use those tracking lines in order to snap to objects based on their angle, or their snaps, or their distances. So I'll demonstrate this case again using the Smart Track. I'm going to start by drawing my line, and I'm going to end snap to this line. Once I hover my mouse over the top of the end point, and the point in the tracking cursor turns gray, now I can move my mouse away, and you can see that the point turns blue, and I have a tracking line. It now specifies that this line is on ortho, which is at 180 degrees, and it specifies the angle that I am off of 180 degrees. If I hold the Shift key, I can snap to the tracking line, and now I'm exactly at 90 degrees. If I move my mouse down here, you can see now I'm at 270 degrees, and it shows me the angle that I am off or less than from the 270 degree angle. So if I just hold Shift, and it comes up and snap to the tracking line and click, and I can turn off Smart Tracking. These are the basics for being able to constrain objects while you're constructing them.